John Oliver and Julie Brown.
What's been done in the name of Jesus? What's been done in the name of Buddha? What's been done in the name of Islam? What's been done in the name of man? What's been done in the name of liberation, and in the name of civilization, and in the name of race, and in the name of peace? Everybody loves to see justice done on somebody else.
The New Age with special guest Bruce Cockburn.
Well, I guess one of the most recent things that is happening is the release of Rumors of Glory, the film.
Yeah, well, it's what you see if you see the film is 82 minutes or so of concert footage. It was shot in December of '81 in Toronto, and shot with 5 cameras and a 24-track sound recording process, and very well documented as a concert. It didn't start out to be that. It started out to be a documentary about being on tour in the United States, and it was going to be sort of a tour's eye view of gritty urban America and so on. But thanks to the weird quirks of financing films in Canada, the money didn't come through until the tour was almost over. So the film crew joined us for about the last few days of the tour and did shoot some stuff, but none of it really added up to much, and so we decided to go with the concert footage alone, and as it turns out, it worked out really well. I'd still like to do the other film at some point, but I'm quite happy with this one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. So is this a project you've been thinking of for a long time?
Not really. We were approached by Bill House, and just with the idea of doing the film, and we thought, we looked it over. We'd had other people mention something to us, gee, it'd be nice to do a film, but nobody had come up with a concrete proposal, and Bill House and his partner Peter Walsh did, and we talked to them at some length and decided to go with them, and it worked out.
Are you happy overall with the sound, technically and everything?
Technically, it's very good. Yeah, I think I can say that without being boastful, because it's not something I had very much to do with, but other than to take the material and act as a kind of consultant in the editing process and so on, and the mixing. But it really was very well recorded. Whether you'll be able to appreciate that on your 4-inch TV speaker is another matter. But if you ever get a chance to hear it in stereo, it really is good.
Okay, good. I know it's already being shown on First Choice, I believe it is, the pay channel, but like to see that very soon. Your most recent album, The Trouble with Normal, I get the feeling that, you've always had a sense of the political through your lyrics, but I don't know, I seem to feel that you're even leaning more that way all the time. Do you think that when times get tougher, there's a need to talk about it even more?
Well, maybe not a greater need, but a greater impetus to talking about it. Most of us can go on quite comfortably ignoring that side of things when things are going right, but when the bread lines start increasing and the unemployment rolls generally start going up, people start to notice that, oh yeah, there is politics, and yeah, it does affect our lives, and I suppose I'm as subject to that kind of current as anybody else. But I think too it's something that's come up over the past few years. It's sort of it's been an attempt. I've been trying to figure out how to sort of relate. I'm talking in the context of the songs now, but how to sort of relate the internal kind of spiritual approach that I took in a lot of my earlier writing. How to relate that to the outside world, and of course, once you start looking at that, you start seeing the relationships between people. If you're looking at you look at the rest of the world with an attempt to love it, and to love the people in it, you find yourself going, well, okay, a lot of people are obviously not doing too well, and a lot of us are doing terrible things to each other, and how do we deal with that? What do we do about it? And the obvious answer is that the only short-term solutions are through the medium of politics, of course.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that that's the best answer in the long run. I don't think it is. I think the only thing we can hope for in the long run is a growth in the quality of human nature, but I don't really know if that'll happen. In the meantime, we've got to kind of do the best we can.
Mm-hmm. Something that, well, many people have said this, of course, but I can recall Pete Townsend was speaking at that Who press conference in Toronto last December, and he was mentioning that in the musical sense, that people tend to become more conservative in their tastes when times are a little more troubled and difficult. And I think that, of course, applies often to politics. Often when you figure that people would turn to something a little different because there are more unemployed and so on, they tend to just stay with what's happening right now, because I guess they're a little afraid, because they know that they have their job and they want to keep things at least within their own little domain the way they are.
Yeah, it's never, people get scared, and that's, on the one hand, it's good to be cautious, of course. It could be dangerous for people to when, if they're driven to a point where they're really upset about things, to sort of suddenly get crazy on us, but at the same time, a little bit of that would be healthy. What happens is you get people going, well, I'm going to hang on to the little bit that I know I can hang on to, and of course that's an illusion, because it's not necessarily going to be there, and I don't know. It depends. It's too bad that it has to wait till you get a situation, for instance, in societies, in third world societies, where there's real extremes. The thing that saves us here from a lot of turmoil is that there are no really great extremes between rich and poor. There are, but they're in such a minority that most people don't notice it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't have the same kind of pressure, and we don't have the same kind of envy, really, I suppose, or the same awareness that a whole lot of people have what we don't have, because we're the ones who have it. So, it's unfortunate that it takes that terribly extreme situation where a few people are wealthy and a lot of people are terribly deprived before you get any kind of serious action for change.
Strikes across the frontier and strikes for higher wage. Planet lurches to the right as ideologies engage. Suddenly it's repression, moratorium on rights. What did they think the politics of panic would invite? Person in the street shrugs, security comes first. But the trouble with normal is it always gets worse. The trouble with normal is it always gets worse. Callous men in business costumes speak computeries. Like pinball with the third world trying to keep it on its knees. Their single crop starvation plans put sugar in your tea. And the local third world kept on reservations you don't see. It'll all go back to normal if we put our nation first. But the trouble with normal is it always gets worse. The trouble with normal is it always gets worse.
I'm hoping that people will gradually, over time, kind of wake up to the fact that it's part of everybody's responsibility to try to make the world right,
Mm-hmm.
not just to hang on to their little piece of the pie, which of course is, in times like this, gets smaller year by year. Anyway.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point. It's interesting, I was thinking of a song such as Tropic Moon, and one or two occasions having been in the Caribbean, and you go to some areas where you'll have a luxury hotel, and just a block or two away are cardboard shacks, people living in squalor, and it's very disturbing. In the song Tropic Moon, I love the line, "Some people never see the light till it shines through bullet holes." I think that's one of your best lines ever.
Some people never see the light till it shines through bullet holes.
the song itself was inspired, and I say inspired, it's not a copy of, but it was inspired by the writings of a man named Ernesto Cardenal, who is a priest, a Trappist priest, and he's also the Minister of Culture of Nicaragua at the moment. He wrote a book, well, he's written a number of poems over a period of years, but there's a book published in the States in a bilingual edition called 0 Hour, and I read that and was terribly moved by the poetry, both by its quality as poetry and by the subject matter, which of course is about Central America. And I found myself thinking a lot about that and about refugees in general. I was in Sardinia at the time, and just generally in Europe, there's more news from what we would consider the third world than there is here in the papers. And you open up any daily newspaper, and they're talking about things that are going on in Libya and in especially the parts of Africa that are closer to the Mediterranean and so on, and the Middle East, of course. And so there was a lot in the news about refugees from all different kinds of places. And I ended up writing that song. The bullet holes line, of course, refers to something like what I was talking about just now, that some people will just never wake up. And tragically enough, I'm not saying that this is, I'm not sort of promoting the idea of shooting people so they'll see the light, but it's unfortunate that it just seems to be the case with a lot of people, that they just won't wake up to the needs of reality, or to the needs of people around them until the bullets start to fly.
Your experience of going to Central America, did it change you somewhat?
Well, it's a little early to tell if it really changed me. It certainly clarified some things. It certainly put the whole issue of north-south, of have-nots, all that kind of thing in a very clear perspective, perhaps more than it had. I mean, I was always, I guess not so much a clear perspective. I knew what it amounted to, but it didn't have a human face on it, and now it does.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly it was a wonderful experience in many ways, and terrible with respect to the refugee camps and so on, but and with respect to the precariousness of the situation in Nicaragua. But there's a lot of positive feeling, a lot of hope, and a lot of really, I guess, when people get pushed up against the wall, it brings out both the worst and the best in them. So you can see the most terrible things being done, but also the real heroism of a non-glorious kind, just the kind of day-to-day getting it on kind of heroism, and a real kind of sense of community where people are committed to working together for a common good.
Bruce Cockburn is our guest on The New Age.
CFMI and Tanglewood Productions present Bruce in concert Friday, May 27th at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. Part of the proceeds going to the Orphans Fund. More of our conversation with Bruce tomorrow.
What's to do when a stab and a pat on the
More next time as the New Age continues. CFMI 101.